Chris Graham here for Trailblazer RV with a new RV orientation on this Venture RV SportTrek 327 VIK. We're going to start right here at the front of the trailer with the battery and propane system. To access your propane bottles, you can open up the flap here on top of the cover, or you can just lift up on the cover to expose the bottles themselves. These are dual 20-pound propane bottles. Both of these are full right now, and you have an automatic switchover propane regulator. So you can see a sight glass right in the center of this regulator showing red. That means that there's no propane flowing, and a bottle selector. So with the arrow pointed to this bottle, if I open the valve, the sight glass will turn from red to clear. There it goes. And what we recommend is opening the valve on both bottles. If you have the regulator selected to one bottle, it'll drain this bottle completely empty first, and then it will automatically switch over and start to pull from the second bottle. When that happens, this sight glass will turn red again, indicating that the first bottle is empty. Then you can switch the regulator over to the second bottle, remove the first bottle to go and refill or exchange it without having to shut down your propane system. Right behind the propane bottles is your battery. This is the standard 12-volt deep cycle RV marine battery. It's a flooded wet cell battery, so it does require a little bit of maintenance. We recommend a couple of times a year pop these two caps off the top of the battery. You'll find 6 cells in there that are full of liquid. Check the liquid level, and if it seems a little bit low in any of the cells, and especially if you can see metal plates sticking through the liquid, you can top it up with some distilled water and put a good charge on the battery. We recommend removing the battery from the RV for winter storage and storing it inside somewhere where it's not going to freeze, and preferably not on a concrete surface. When you go to hook it up, again, very simple, 2 wires here, red to positive, black to negative. You've also got a battery disconnect switch right here behind the battery. So when you put the RV into storage, if you want to disconnect the battery, just turn it to off. That kills all the power from the battery to the trailer. For now, we'll leave that on so we can show you a few things when we get inside. Around the side of the trailer, you've got your pass-through front storage. This is where you'll find your 50 amp power cord. So this is 50 amps, so you can plug right into 50 amp service at the post. We do include an adapter over on the other side of the storage as well, called a dog bone, to break this down from 50 amp to 30 amp, and also a park adapter to break it down from 30 amp to 15 amp, so you can plug into any power source. Right next to the storage compartment is your fresh water system. So you can fill your fresh water tank from here using a garden hose, or preferably one of those white drinking water specific garden hoses, so you don't get the plasticky taste in your water. And you can hook up to pressurized water from here if you're staying at a site with full water services. So if you're hooking up to pressurized city water, we recommend using a water pressure regulator. Just one of those little brass pieces that goes on the end of your hose, just to maintain proper operating water pressure in the system, to ensure that you don't over pressurize the system and risk having a leak. You've also got access from right here behind this panel. There's a screw to remove from here and open up this panel to access your water pump. And the reason you might want to access that is there's also a antifreeze siphon kit installed there. So if you're one to do your own winterizing, you can set your jug of antifreeze right here, turn a valve, and put the hose into the antifreeze jug to pump antifreeze directly from the jug through all of the water lines in the RV. To drain that fresh water tank, if you draw a line straight down from here, you'll find your freshwater tank drain. And that is open right now because the RV is winterized. So when you go to fill your freshwater tank in the spring, make sure to remember to shut this valve. Another hose connection here a little further back. Don't confuse this one with that one. This is your sewer tank flush system. So when you're dumping your black water holding tank, your sewage holding tank, you can hook a hose up to here and spray out the inside of that tank. So it'll spray off the monitor probes and the sidewalls of the tank to keep that tank monitor reading correctly. You'll dump the sewer from right here. We supply a new sewer hose. It's a 20-foot sewer hose, and it's stored in the rear bumper right now. So when you go to dump your holding tanks, hook your sewer hose right onto here. Other end goes into the ground, and then you've got two valves, a smaller gray valve here and a black valve a little further forward. When you're dumping your holding tanks, always dump the black valve first. That's your sewer. And then once that's finished draining, you can close that valve and open the gray valve to dump your sink and shower water. That'll use that gray water to flush all of the sewage contents through the sewer hose, so there's nothing left in there when you have to disconnect your hose and stow it back in the bumper. You've also got an outside shower here on this side of the trailer. Pretty simple operation for that. Hot and cold taps, and the shower itself will extend up to about that height. Right here on the side of the trailer is your furnace exhaust. I just like to point this out. When the furnace is running, this gets very hot, so make sure that if you've got young kids around the trailer, they know not to touch that. And right here is where that 50 amp power cord would plug in. We showed you that in the front storage compartment. Here around the back of the trailer, a couple of things to point out. This is the bumper. The sewer hose is stored inside here, so just remove this rubber cap to access your sewer hose. You've got the hitch on the back. So the hitch is rated for 250 pounds, and there's all sorts of hitch mount carriers that you can get. Cargo trays, bike carriers, kayak racks, that kind of thing. Make sure not to exceed 250 pounds. Right here is your hot water tank. So this is a gas electric hot water tank. If you're parked at a site with electricity, you can turn on this little black rocker switch at the bottom of the tank, and then there's a secondary switch inside to toggle that hot water heater on and off using electricity. Or you can run the tank on propane, and the switch for that is inside. So we'll show you where that is when we get inside. There's two black reset buttons out here. These are ECOs. So these will trip if you ever overheat the water tank. Basically, the only time that happens is if you accidentally start it up with no water in the tank. But if you're trying to start up your hot water tank and it won't start, come out here, press these two reset buttons, and everything should go back to normal. You've also got a pressure relief valve here. If the tank over pressurizes, it will let some water and some pressure out from here. You can also pull this to bleed the pressure off of the tank before you remove the plug to drain the tank for the winter. When you remove the plug, you'll notice this rod on the end of it. This is your sacrificial anode rod. So the impurities in the water will corrode this rod over time to help preserve the inside lining of the water tank. So it can get quite pitted and corroded looking. It's just doing its job. But once it gets down to just that tiny little rod in the center, it's time to replace. You can pick that up in our parts and accessory department or at pretty much any RV dealer. Here at your outside entertainment center, the kitchen just slides out like so. The water tap can be attached just like this. There we go. That will need to be removed, obviously, to slide the tray back into place. You also need to hook up the propane line for the 2-burner stove top. So you'll find the quick connect for that right underneath here. So hook your quick connect propane line right onto here and then down to here and open this valve Obviously remove the dust cap, hook up the line, open the valve for propane to flow. This is also where you'll find the drain for your sink drain. So you can hook a garden hose up to that and run it away from the trailer into a portable tote tank or a bucket or into a ditch. But that's where the sink drain will drain from. And your propane hose, your quick connect propane hose is included as well. You should find that in the storage compartment up at the front. The outside fridge is electric only, so this needs to be plugged into 110 volt power to operate. And you've got a separate stereo system here for the outside, AM, FM, CD, DVD, and Bluetooth capabilities. And here in the front storage compartment, this is where you'll find that quick connect propane line, as well as the 50 amp to 30 amp dog bone adapter that we talked about on the other side. Got a couple of jack handles here. The larger one is for your stabilizing jacks. So you can crank those jacks down to be snug with the ground, but we don't actually recommend lifting the RV with those. They're for stability rather than leveling. So once you've got the RV parked and relatively level, you can just crank those down to be snug with the ground to take some of the side-to-side motion out of the RV. And the other jack handle here is for your power front jack. Obviously for the power front jack, pretty simple operation. Press up to go up, down to go down. But if you do have a electrical problem or some other issue with the jack, you can remove this rubber cap here and crank it manually with the crank handle. Only other thing that I like to point out on the outside is at the running gear. There is just a couple of things there that I like to talk about. Your wheel nuts are torqued to 100 foot-pounds, and we do recommend periodically retorquing wheel nuts with an RV. Also repacking wheel bearings. You've got easy lube axles on this one, so if you pop the center cap off of the hub there, you'll find a grease zerk, and you can use a grease gun to grease your inner and outer wheel bearings. That doesn't eliminate the need to repack wheel bearings, though. It just prolongs the intervals. So instead of repacking wheel bearings every year, maybe you can repack wheel bearings every 3 to 5 years, as long as you're occasionally giving it some fresh grease. Your tires are inflated to 80 psi. You'll find that stamped on the sidewall of the tire, and go ahead and run those tires right at 80 psi. A lot of people run their RV tires underinflated, and that can lead to problems with tire wear and even blowouts. You've got dual armless power awnings here. Those are controlled from inside. Just inside your safe tech box. So for the awnings, turn the switches on and press the extend button. The awnings extend 8 feet. No need to hold the button on these ones, obviously. They'll come out all by themselves. And then once they've reached their full extension, they'll just tighten up. These awnings also have wind sensors integrated. So as long as you've got the on switch, or the switch turned on, if they start flapping around excessively, the awnings will pull themselves in. We'll go ahead and bring those in now. And same thing, just press the button, the retract retract button once and the awnings will come in all by themselves. Come on inside here and I'll show you a few more things in the trailer. Starting right here in the safe tech box at the central control panel. So here's where you'll find the main switch for your lights, as well as the outside yard light. This is also where you'll find the monitor panel. So you can check the level of the freshwater tank, which is empty right now. Battery is completely charged. Black tank is empty and gray tank is empty. There's also a spot here for black 2 and gray 2. This particular trailer doesn't have a second black tank or gray tank. It only has one bathroom and therefore one set of holding tanks. You'll find your 3 slide out switches here. With the slide switches, pretty easy operation. Press and hold the in button till the slide comes all the way in. Press and hold the out button till the slide goes all the way out. Once you hear a ratcheting sound, that's when you know the slide's reached its full extension. Just take your finger off the button at that time. You've also got a couple of switches here for your hot water heater. If you're plugged into power and running the hot water heater on electricity, this switch will need to be on. Remember, there's also the secondary switch on the outside of the tank that'll need to be on to run the heater electrically. And if you are running the tank on propane, you can press this button right here. The red light comes on showing a fault or that the tank is not operating, but when it lights up, which it'll do automatically, that light will go out. Just like so. And we're not actually going to let that tank stay lit because, as we know right now, this trailer is winterized, so there's no water in the tank. This is also where you'll toggle the water pump on and off. If you're dry camping using the water from the water reservoir, just turn on the water pump to pump water through all of your taps. And then your 2 awnings have awning lights integrated into the roller tube as well. So turn the switch on to activate your awning roller tube lights. You got 12 volt and 110 volt power here as well for chargers if you want to get phones and stuff up off of the counter. The fridge in this model is the 10 cubic foot 12 volt compressor style fridge. So larger capacity than the common 8 cubic foot, and this runs off the RV's 12 volt battery system only, so no propane system to worry about with this fridge. The stovetop, you've got 3 burner propane stovetop here, and all 3 of the burners work with the piezo igniter. And one thing that I always recommend, anytime you've had your propane system disconnected, if you've taken a bottle off to refill it or whatever, once you hook that propane system back up, the first thing you should do is come here and light all 3 of these burners. Once you can get all 3 of these burners lit, you know you've bled any air that was on that propane system out of the lines, and your automatic appliances like your furnace and hot water tank will have no problem starting up. The oven, you've got a little pilot light to light with the oven. So with this model of oven, you can turn this over to the little pilot setting there, push in on the pilot knob, and then you can use the same piezo sparker to light the oven pilot. It's just going to take us a second to get some propane through there. There we go. So once you see a pilot light there, continue to hold the knob in for 10 or 15 seconds just for that thermocouple to heat up. And then once you release the knob and the pilot stays on, you can turn it up to temperature and it'll light the oven burner. Once you're finished using the oven, you can turn that down to pilot and just leave the pilot burning, or you can turn it all the way off and just relight it next time you need to use the oven. Other things in the trailer to talk to you about. You've got your thermostat here. This controls both your heating and air conditioning. And you've got furnace mode, off, fan mode, and air conditioning mode. And you hear the air conditioner just starting to kick in there, remarkably, because it's actually not that warm in here. But when we turn it to furnace, we can set the temperature that we're comfortable with. That furnace fan comes on and is going to run for a few seconds before we actually hear the igniter, and that's what you can hear now in the video, is that direct spark igniter. So now if we gave it a few seconds, we would have warm air blowing through our vents. Once the trailer comes up to temperature, or once you shut off the system, the burner goes out immediately, but that furnace fan is going to continue to run for 30 seconds to a minute just to go through its cycle. Here at your entertainment system, you've got your electric fireplace. One of a few things that you'll need to be plugged into power to operate. Electric fireplace, microwave, TVs, and air conditioner, as well as your outside fridge. Those devices need to be plugged into power. Everything else will run off of your batteries and propane system. Similar stereo system to the outside with AM, FM, CD, DVD, and Bluetooth. It's already wired into the TV for the DVD player. Here in the bedroom, not a whole lot to cover back here. You do have an emergency escape window that I just like to point out. With this style of window, it hinges up so you can prop it open for some ventilation. It is a little bit of a tricky mechanism though, so I always just recommend practicing that a little bit so that you're comfortable with it if you ever do need to use it for emergency escape. In the event of that, the window just hinges all the way up, and just pull the screen out using the red tab. I think that mostly covers it in here. There are a couple of safety features to cover. One is your smoke detector. So the smoke detector has its own 9-volt battery. So you want to make sure and check that periodically, once or twice a season, just to make sure that that battery hasn't gone dead. So you can test that by pressing the test button until you hear the beep. Then you know that the detector is working. And over here is your combination propane and carbon monoxide detector. So this is actually wired into the RV's 12-volt electrical system, so no separate battery for this. So it will do 3 things. It can alert you obviously to a carbon monoxide leak or a propane leak. However, if you had a propane leak, you would almost certainly smell the propane before the detector goes off. But the third thing that it will do is alert you to low voltage. So if it starts to chirp to alert low voltage, that means the RV's battery is getting low. So you'll need to put a charge on your RV battery. Here in the bathroom, you've got your GFI power outlet. So same as the one in the bathroom in your home with test and reset buttons. The only difference in an RV is this is wired in series with several of your other power outlets. So if you trip your GFI, you'll lose power at all of your outlets. Just come in here, press the reset button, and that'll reset the whole circuit. You'll also find here in the bathroom your LevelMate Pro control panel. This works with the Venture RV app to use your smart device for leveling. Make sure you check out our setting up your LevelMate Pro video to set that up the first time. And just a note about the RV. sewer system. Anytime you're using the RV sewer system, make sure to use a good potent RV toilet chemical. You can get it in powder, liquid, or tablet form. It doesn't matter which you use, but when you add chemical to the holding tank, make sure to add some water with it. The chemical takes some water to activate it, and make sure to use the RV specific toilet paper as well that works with the chemical to break down. And you'll want to put new chemical in your holding tank immediately after every time you dump that holding tank. And here in the bedroom, just a couple of things to cover here. You've got another emergency exit window, and this is also where you'll find the power converter. So this is the power center for the entire RV. And we'll see if we can open that up. So this is where you'll find all of your 110 volt breakers and all of your 12 volt fuses. This also acts as the battery charger for the RV, so it's not uncommon for it to make a little bit of a humming or a buzzing noise when it's operating under heavy load. Nothing to worry about there. And you've got almost all 15 amp fuses with one 20 amp fuse as well. So not a bad idea to have just a few extra 15 and 20 amp fuses. It's not uncommon in an RV to blow a fuse, and it might save you some headache at the campsite sometime to have some spares. And I think that pretty much covers it. Hopefully you've learned something about the Venture RV SportTrek 327 VIK. If you have any questions, you can always check our website, trailblazerrv.com, or just get a hold of us here at Trailblazer. Thanks for watching.